All right. We are live, Kathleen. We're in the mix right now. We are coming at you from White Plains, and you're in Stamford, right?
Yep, Stamford, Connecticut.
Stamford CT, and we're all right now. It's a beautiful day today. We're all doing our best. We're getting through this, and this is one that I've been looking forward to all week because it's been really cool. So you'd like to hear. I think there's been a lot of people that we've talked to with different backgrounds, with different ways of coping, with different, I think challenges and different activities we've been doing. Like we had someone do a yoga session, we had someone do a reading. We're having my buddy do a live DJ stream next week, which is going to be hysterical. But I
Yeah.
think what's really cool is, just so for the viewers to know, this is Kathleen Early. She is a licensed mental health professional, and she works at Sacred Heart University. And she's actually a former Division I athlete as well. And I know you work a lot of times specifically with athletes and also with other people. But,
hmm
I think it's just really cool to have you because not only do you have, the lived experience, way of talking to people, just how you connect with people and, being young and being very energetic, but you also are a professional and you studied this and you went to school for this. And I think when people listen to you, it gives them an extra sense of, wow, I'm not just listening to John speak about his story all the time and, bore me to death. I actually got someone that has experience and that also has, that has a story too. So I think it's very, very, we're really excited to have you on. And yeah, so thanks for joining us. I hope, how you been so far? How's everything been treating you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this. I think, being able to talk just about what we're all going through, what we're experiencing together, and just really how this time is something that we've never ever been, exposed to. It's so new for all of us. So I think it's, really important to take this time to talk about our mental health and how it's more important now than ever, really. And yeah, I've been good. I've been trying to just really take care of myself, practice what you preach, if you will, and really put my self-care first, sticking to a routine as best I can, getting outside and, doing all those little things that are really, really important for me on a daily basis. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be able to kind of share that message and just hopefully allow people to hear today that it's okay, whatever you're going through, whatever you're feeling, and to really validate that for them.
Now, for you, what has been, I think, the best thing that you've been doing during this downtime? Because I know we were talking about there's some ups, there's some downs, there's rainy mornings where we don't want to get out of bed, and it's a
Yeah.
little tough and a little tricky. And you have beautiful days like today, which obviously gives us a little more. Whenever we talk, it seems like the weather is nice. By the way, it's two
Yeah,
times in a
that's
row.
true.
Yeah, but I guess like for you, what has been your favorite thing to do to kind of recenter yourself and to let some of the stress out personally?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me right now is keeping a routine. Like I just find that I mean, I think as human beings, we are just like creatures of habit, right? So routine is everything right now. And it's something that I was struggling with in the beginning, but really coming back to that and just, doing what I can every single day to kind of keep that routine alive, if you will, but also really giving myself, that forgiveness. I think that's so important to understand that it's okay to slow down right now. And being a Division I athlete and even just with the work I do, I find myself going really, really fast in my normal routine, and that right now it's kind of like the world has just almost stopped and like is standing still in some ways. And to just allow myself to really be present with that and just tell myself it's okay to slow down, and to give myself that forgiveness for whether it's a day that I'm struggling, or I didn't get to maybe do something that was on my list, and to really just take this moment to be more present, and to really just be okay with going slower.
It's so ironic that you say that too, because I've been thinking the same exact thing. It's like my routine isn't perfect right now,
hmm
right? And when I was working in the quote unquote real world, right? I would know what I would be doing. I know I have a school to go to this week. I knew the exact preparation I needed to do. I knew when I could turn it on, and then I knew the times when I could kind of turn it off. Now it's a little bit different.
hmm
And by a little bit different, it's very different, right?
Yeah.
But it's been slower, but I was having a great conversation with a buddy of mine this morning. It's been slower, but I've actually been more productive than I thought I was, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's the unique thing, is even though I don't feel as productive, I feel a lot healthier in a sense, because I've been actually, I think one of my problems was I was moving 25 billion miles an hour, and moving
Mhm.
25 billion miles an hour doesn't usually, it's on the outside, and to people it might look great, and wow, you're doing a million different things, but on the inside, that's not healthy. And I think I've been learning that, and like that forgiveness piece is like what I'm trying to figure out, is when it goes back
Mhm.
to normal. Man, if I could combine what I was doing before with how I'm thinking now, there could be something brewing there.
Yeah. And I think it's such right now, like I think it can be really obviously we're going through a lot of loss, with just like school kind of coming to an abrupt end, or seasons coming to an abrupt end. And we're really dealing with a lot of challenges. And I think, we're all dealing with it together, which is really cool to be able to experience something together. But I also think like it's so important to look at this time as really an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to be able to invest in ourselves. And with that being said, not to feel like you have to do a million things, but maybe just getting down, a self-care routine that works for you, or finding something right now that maybe you weren't able to do when you were going a million miles an hour, right? And hoping that if it's so important to you after this, it will stick and you'll be able to add that to your self-care routine. So I think looking at this time as, it can feel really negative, because if you're watching the news and everything that's going on, it's really easy to get sucked into that. But I think to kind of take that step back and to slow down and say, this is really an opportunity where we can invest in ourselves, and we can look at it as, a chance just to learn more about ourselves.
Really, it's really amazing that you say that too, because one thing that I've been doing a lot differently. So before this, I did yoga like once. I tried it
Hmm.
out, and not that I didn't like it. My mind, I wasn't in the right mind space, I guess. I had too many things going on and I couldn't slow it down. So the
Hmm.
last like 3 days, it's funny. I did an online mindfulness class with someone that we met at Southern Connecticut State, Denise Zach. She was a former counselor there, and that slowed me down. And I've been doing like this box breathing technique where
Hmm.
I'm doing like, and it's
Yeah.
actually been super super helpful, because it's
Hmm.
allowing me to, like, I don't know, to get out of my own head and be more present in the moment. Because here's the thing, right? Like you were saying, this is a great time for growth, because we can't really control the future, right? And it's something that we always think we can do by doing this and doing this and putting ourselves in this position and putting ourselves in that position and this. and,
Hmm.
and right now, I mean, all we can really do is kind of think, get creative, think, okay, what can I do in this moment to feel healthy and also to prepare myself, right? And I've noticed the more I'm being present and feeling healthy, the ideas tend to flow a little bit more when you're taking care of yourself a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'll be honest with you, there's been some very tough times. There's been some mornings that it has been very hard that I haven't gotten
Hmm.
anything done. But that forgiveness factor that you said early on, that is huge, because that self-care routine that you brought up, I mean, if we could start to slowly get that down during this tricky time, you know, it'll, I think, help us translate that into the quote unquote real world.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that you make, that there's been some days that have been really hard. And I think looking at this time is really it feels like, we're kind of on this like sort of emotional like spectrum, if you will. And there's some days where we're going on one end and some days where we're going on the other. And that's totally normal during this time. We're all experiencing anxiety and stress at a level that we've really never experienced before. And I think having flexibility, and that kind of goes with that forgiveness piece, but having flexibility in your self-care and understanding that one day it might be really great and the other day it might not. And that's okay. And really whatever you're feeling, to not jump to that like judgment, right? Like to not judge yourself for it, but to instead like kind of take that step back, and to really be okay with it in the moment, and just sort of allow yourself to do what you need, in that moment.
And it's like what you're talking about when we were talking earlier about the continuum, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's so important for students to hear. That's why I can imagine why students love talking to you too, because when they hear that, right, you start, and I think it's the big trap that a lot of students, including myself when I was a student, fall into. Oh my God, I'm feeling bad today. It's gonna be bad forever. This is
Hmm.
gonna be tough. I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this. I don't know what's gonna happen. And then all of a sudden the next day, oh, I actually do feel a little bit better.
Hmm.
It's giving yourself a chance to accept those feelings, because, oh man, I had a tough 3 hours this morning. Okay, I had a bad 3 hours, but then all of a sudden I went outside, I took a walk, and then those bad 3 hours turned into something good. And it showed me that, well, I don't need to be in front of a computer for 3 hours to do something good for myself and to be healthier and to be quote unquote successful, right? Or however that's defined for people. But that continuum is something that students need to hear, because I'll never forget, when I, a little bit about my own story, when I went through that period when I was a junior in college, and I went through that month where I was losing it. I didn't realize that there was hope. And, if I had known and I was getting help and I was seeing someone like you, I would have known, oh my God, this is natural. This is a
Mhm.
continuum. I'm not going to feel like this forever. And my God, when you're in the moment, you feel like you're going to feel like it forever, but you're not, I promise you that. And I
Mhm.
think, man, that whole point of a continuum is probably something you must hammer home a lot with students.
Yeah, and that's such a good point that you make. And I love talking about that with students that, I do talk to, is that everyone has mental health, and mental health really is on a continuum. And it's something that, like you were saying, like you can experience on one end, you can experience it on one end of the continuum and on the other. And I think what's such a good point is that it's so important to understand that we can come in and out of our feelings, right? And it's something that we don't have to stay in that feeling forever. And whatever you're feeling right now, it doesn't mean that it's going to last forever. You're going to be able to come out of that. And I think when we can understand and get a grasp on really what we're feeling and have more self-awareness to it, it allows us to also come out of those feelings maybe a little bit sooner,
Yeah.
than if we weren't aware of it.
So you think, like, I guess, like for you, the best way to get out of those feelings is, what would you suggest?
I mean, I always love to go back to self-care, and I know that we can, as a society, throw that word around, and it can sort of lose value, it feels like at times. But I think when we really think about self-care and what self-care really is, and the way I like to look at it in my own life is really any intentional act that I do to better my mental, emotional, or physical health, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times when I'm sort of feeling down or anxious or you know sad or whatever that feeling is, I tend to try to recognize it and just say to myself, like, okay, like what's one little thing I could do right now to just help myself. And not saying that it always works or that I'm perfect in that either, but I think trying to just really be aware of those feelings and understand that right now is a time where we might be feeling things that we've never felt before, but really understanding what's in our control and what we can do to help ourselves right now is so important. And I think what you mentioned before, like going outside and taking a walk for 5 minutes, or you know doing a breathing exercise, and just putting your computer away and putting all those things, those external distractions away, and allowing yourself just to be present. And I think that's so important. And I feel for myself that it's more important right now than it ever has been in my life.
That's so powerful too, because I think that whole recognition, right? And hearing people, hearing you say that, I think is very reassuring for a lot of people, because it's like when you can recognize why you're feeling a specific way, it allows you to almost accept that feeling. And it's almost like that whole concept of mindfulness that people were, I've been learning about a lot more, is like when you accept that feeling, you let it in, it's a lot easier to let it out than you think. And for someone with OCD, sometimes letting go of feelings is at times it was really really hard for me, right?
Mhm.
And but then the more I accept those feelings, like I know that I'm not doing much right now, but I know that there's going to be a way out of it, and I start acknowledging it. Then I'll do 10 push-ups, and all of a sudden my mind will move a little more. And then before you know it, after those 10 push-ups, I'm like, oh, all right, boom, 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 boom. I get typing again. I get into that zone that I need to get into. So I think that's such an important thing when you are having those bad feelings, getting back to self-care. And I love how you say self-care is different for everyone, right? It's not just, the bubble baths and what
Yeah.
people think it may be. Sometimes it is doing 5 push-ups. Sometimes it is calling your mom. Sometimes it is
Yeah.
doing a breathing exercise. And I love that, because that allows you to stay consistent. And when you are feeling it, you start getting slowly stronger each and every time, right?
Hmm.
And you start figuring out ways to get out of it. And then when you do get hit really hard, you're allowed to say, okay, I'm getting hit hard. And then you reach out for that help. And then when you do have a conversation with someone like you, they're able to recenter themselves, and they're able to say, okay, there are ways for me to get through this. And when I think when the mind starts seeing solutions, right? Especially when we can't always explain everything, but we start seeing, okay, I'm feeling like this and it makes sense, right? That helped me so much, because when I used to feel like, why am I having these anxious thoughts? Well, my therapist used to say, well, John, think about it. You are going back to school in a month, and school and change has always triggered you. So accept it. And I was like, okay. And then it was funny
Yeah.
because always the week before school was always a million times worse than being at school and actually doing the hard work that I was
Hmm.
afraid of, you know?
Yeah, and I
So
think a lot of times we get, even with, that example right there, it sounds like, you know, you were getting anxious about being, maybe anxious, or, stressed about being stressed. And I think it's so important to really, to think about that, and to say to myself, like, okay, like, yeah, I am feeling stressed right now, but like, you don't want to add to that and get stressed over being stressed,
yeah,
right? So to separate the two and kind of be okay with being stressed, or maybe having that, extra work, or also being okay with stepping away and doing something to help yourself to manage that stress, I think is so, so important.
yeah. There's that whole self-awareness factor that
Hmm.
is always hard to kind of realize when you're going through it, but then that's the beauty of it. It's like, oh my God, there are ways for me to do this.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that's really intrigued me, what we were talking a little bit about, is just like being able to get into those routines, and even like sleeping, right? We were literally
Hmm.
just talking about this beforehand,
Yeah.
and I know you talk a little about sleep hygiene in a sense.
Yeah.
Can you dive into that a little bit? Because I'm listening to the professor right now. I want to hear a little bit more about how to do that, because I am a mess when it comes to that.
Of course, yes. Sleep, I think, is by far one of the most important things, and I think can a lot of times can be overlooked, even with students that I talk to. And I'll ask them some probing questions about their sleep hygiene and their habits around sleep, and it's always in some ways a little bit funny, because I'll get that they're going to sleep at 3 a.m. and then having to wake up for their 8 a.m. and things like that. And you wonder why it's hard. But I think it's so important to really look at sleep, and in a lot of ways I try to look at sleep as a form of self-care. I think it's really important to look at it that way, and it's a way to take care of yourself. And I think, just to kind of dive into it a little deeper, when we are getting the proper sleep and have a routine around, you know, around our sleep, we're able to wake up the next day, be maybe a little bit more resilient, or be able to cope with things that come our way. And when we are well rested, we really can feel just a greater sense of energy too, and that all contributes to our overall mood and just the way we're able to handle what comes at us the next day. And I think with everything that's going on, like, sleep is something that is really, really important. um, but with that, I also hear a lot with students that I talk to that sleep is something that's really hard for them, and a lot of times is something that they feel like it's hard to fall asleep, or they're waking up a lot at night. So I think, if you don't mind, like, going into a couple tips around maybe sleep and what could be helpful even right now. um, so for myself, I think, really having sort of that structure around bedtime, I think it's important to try and have that time frame where, we're falling asleep around the same time and waking up at the same time, and getting into that routine of, just how much we are sleeping. I hear a lot of students struggling with, when I go to bed, like, I get those racing thoughts. And I think a lot of times when we do end up, putting our head on the pillow, it's maybe the first time where our body's like just stopped, and our mind has just been able to stop for the first time that day. So it makes a lot of sense why our minds are, tend to race around bedtime and when we are sleeping, because it's the first time we've had that moment to just, like, kind of stand still a little bit.
Yeah.
And so some tips around that I find can be really helpful, or just to maybe write down some of the things that you find are, constantly on your mind, or some of your worries at nighttime. And even keeping, like, a notebook next to your bed can be super helpful, just to be able to take it away from your mind and put it on that piece of paper, and just leave it there for the night. Can be really, really something that is beneficial to kind of shut your mind off, if you will. another thing that I hear all the time is students a lot of times use their phone before bed. And I know it's something that's so simple and everyone probably hears about it, right? That it's, it's not good to be using our phone around bedtime. And, sometimes we kind of get into the habit of when we can't sleep, we'll grab our phone to, maybe scroll through Instagram or TikTok or some social media platform. And we're really just reactivating our mind when we do that, and kind of keeping ourselves awake. So to try to stay away from your phone as much as possible is really, really helpful. And if those sorts of things don't work, like even before bed, like taking a hot shower or a hot bath can kind of be soothing. Anything that you find really soothing. I have an oil diffuser next to my bed, so a lot of times like I'll use that as a way to just relax myself and kind of shut down and unwind for the day. So those are some tips that I like to, kind of my go-to tips, if you will, around sleep.
Yeah, and I mean, you hit the nail on the head because the difference, I've slept a lot more than I have these
Hmm.
last 3 weeks than I have before everything happened, for sure. I mean, sometimes I was oversleeping a little bit, but the amount of energy that you have, I don't need coffee nearly as much as I used to. And I feel a lot healthier and I feel a lot more, I don't feel like I'm burning myself out. And I think the hardest thing with that college mentality, especially for like an athlete, right, is, oh man, I got this, I got that, I got this. It's like if there's it's like trying to crack the code of saying, listen, like just going to bed or turning everything off at 11 and saying, listen, my boundaries are closed. You can't reach out to me from 11 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. or whenever someone's supposed to wake up, right? Because you need that sacred time, I feel like, right? Like when I start having those thoughts and they start racing before I go to bed, it's automatically another 20 minutes for me.
Hmm.
And then I'll be on my phone writing down these ideas, which is ridiculous. But at the same time, it's like trying to give myself a little bit more time to do that before I sleep. So then when I get there, I know that I'm here, right? And
Hmm.
I know what I'm here to do. Same way you're executing, you're trying to figure out how to perfect, a corner kick, right? Let's
Yeah.
try to perfect this way of sleeping. And those are such good tips because it's so realistic too, because you hear it every day. You're working with students all the time. It's a tough time to be a student with everything going on with social media, with the pressure. It's a high pressure society right now. And it's like, man, like if you
Absolutely.
say, listen, like I don't care what people are telling me, I don't care how much work I have to do. This sleep is it's really going to make your life better.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to look at it. Like, I try to really look at it as a form of self-care. And, even a couple, you kind of triggered a couple more thoughts even around sleep,
Yeah.
but, trying to keep your bed as just really, where you sleep. And I think a lot of times, students will be doing homework on their bed or, just kind of lounging, and it can kind of become this place where you just like hang out. And I think, allowing your mind to just know that your bed is for sleep and to keep other things away from it is so, so important. And to not associate your bed with stress or with, other things that are going on in your life, and to really just associate it with, this is where I'm able to, to just turn my mind off and to really relax and rejuvenate myself for the next day, I think is really, really important.
That's helped me so much too because when I used to live at home, I would do all my work from my bed, and it
Hmm.
was terrible because then I would go back and then I'd try to go to sleep and I'd be like, oh my God. But now I do all my work from like, it's funny. I'm not a big desk guy, but I do all my work from like the couch, like where I am right now.
Hmm.
So it's like, maybe it's not perfect because I do relax on the couch and I do watch movies here. But, when my roommate's gone, because he's usually typically gone, for work, I'll be here just, getting in my zone. It allows
Hmm.
me to focus. And it's like, I mean, it's amazing the difference that you have when you do have that type of, almost like boundary for yourself to say, I'm not gonna do work on my bed. I'm gonna actually slow myself down. I'm actually gonna prioritize sleep because
Hmm.
I've done that too. Because instead of saying I got to be doing work at 8:30 at night, I've been saying, all right, listen, like I'm not going to do work at 8:30 at night anymore, right? I'm going to stop, and I become a lot more productive, a lot more
Hmm.
productive.
Yeah. And I think that's, just even what you said right there, like it's not perfect. And I think just reminding ourselves that right now, like really nothing's really going to be perfect, right? It's just sort of making, every day, like looking at, what's going to work best for me. And I think, taking the pressure away from yourself to know that it doesn't have to be perfect in the, the societal sense, I guess you could say, but more so what works for me. And it sounds like, getting away from your bed and even being on, doing some work on your couch and, finding that space where you can really turn yourself on and kind of get in the zone is helpful for you. And I think for other students out there to kind of hear that, you don't have to have a perfect self-care routine, or you don't have to, do everything so perfectly. It's okay to kind of just do what's working for you and what's best for you.
Yeah. And like you were talking about too, that whole forgiveness aspect of not being perfect is the key, because
Yeah.
we put pressure on ourselves to be perfect. Life is so much more miserable. I
Mhm.
hate to be blunt, but I've seen it. I've lived it, and it's like when you give yourself, when you allow yourself to enjoy certain aspects of the day, and you allow yourself to let your mind wander a little bit sometimes and just be around, I mean, you just become a happier person, and you just become a more content person.
Mhm.
And it's great because it shows that even like the highest energy of people like me, I'll run around like a wild man. I'll run around like literally like a dog in a dog park,
Mhm.
so I feel like my mind is sometimes chasing its tail. And when you're allowed to slow yourself down, I mean, that helps so much. And I think like another thing that's been really obviously prevalent, and we talked about this too, is just isolation right now, right?
Yeah.
And how social isolation has been, I think people are almost confusing it, right, with physical isolation. And I'm
Mhm.
sure that a lot of the students and a lot of the people, and even with yourself, right, like you can't really see your friends. You can, you can't really see your family. You're in quarantine right now.
Yeah.
How I guess first I'll ask you, how have you been dealing with that? How have you been able to get involved with people, with friends in your community, and how have you been able to, I guess, help others, especially particular college students that may be listening? How are you able to kind of keep them healthy and keeping those habits good while being connected in a sense?
Yeah, this is a huge topic right now. I think we're seeing all over social media, all over the news, like social distancing, and that's like what everyone is saying. It is like the tagline right now, right? Like you're seeing it everywhere. And I think what I've talked a lot about with my colleagues, and even just heard other people talking about, is to really kind of break that stigma, if you will, and instead of calling it social distancing, referring to it as physical distancing, because we're not actually socially distancing ourselves. We're just physically distancing ourselves. So I think, for me personally, I come from a big family. I'm one of five, and family is like everything. And, I have a really good support system and friends from college that I love to stay connected with. And in normal times, I'd be, seeing them, on the weekends and things like that. So it has been a really hard adjustment for me. We've just been trying to get creative with it. And, texting is great, but I think being able to have that face-to-face interaction with people is so important right now. So even, over the weekend, I did a family Zoom call, and we play this family game sometimes. And we actually played it like on the Zoom call, and it was a little bit different, and we had to, figure out how to make it work. But we decided that we were, going to try it, and it was fun. And even last night, like, getting on a group FaceTime with my friends and, just talking about what we would normally talk about, or even, what's going on in the world and how it's affecting us. So I think just looking at this as really, reminding ourselves that we're only physically distancing ourselves, and that social connection is still there. We might just have to work a little bit harder for it now, but I think it's more important now than it ever has been. And because it can feel easy to kind of become isolated and not reach out, and to kind of get sucked into, our house or our apartment, wherever we're living. So to really, really make it such an important part of our routine, and to have fun with it. Because I think that's one of the things that we're missing out as, just as a community. Like we're all stuck inside, that's not really, it's not that much fun to be stuck inside, right? We're missing out on so many things that we would normally do. So trying to just really take what we would do maybe in our normal routine if all this wasn't going on, and to implement it as much as we can in our sense, in our new routine, right? Our new normal. And for me, that's really just been, trying to jump on FaceTime, group FaceTime calls, or, playing games with my family over Zoom, and getting creative and just doing like, silly things. I know a lot of people are, doing like, I don't know, just like dance things together, and like just have
Absolutely.
fun with
Breaking it down.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a reminder to, do what you can to have fun, and to really stay connected with your friends, your family, your support system, because now more than ever we need each other. And if you're struggling, I'm sure somebody else is struggling. So if you feel like you can help them and you can connect with them, that's so important. And helping someone else right now is going to also allow you to feel really good about yourself. So to reach out to each other, to be there for each other, because we're all going through this together. And that's something that I don't think we've ever really been able to say before. Like, this
Yeah.
is something that we were all experiencing at the same level. And there's some kind of, I don't know, it's just, that's, for me, that's kind of, I guess a cool way to look at it. Like, we're all going through this together. And even, great to see how much, acts of kindness there are out there, and how much positivity there is being spread. So even that's another way to really feel good about yourself, like to reach out to maybe those nurses or doctors that or to do a small act of kindness that can go a long way for someone else and also make you feel better.
I think so too. And also, like you were saying, I love the whole not being afraid to have fun aspect,
Yeah.
because people are forgetting it, and it's, it's hard because as empathetic people, you see what's going on in the world, and you don't want to be that person that's, oh, I'm having fun with all, but at the same time, it's, you have to separate that empathy in a sense from your own self-care. Like,
Hmm.
just because this is a very dark time does not mean that we can't do what we can to be healthy and do what we can to
Right.
have fun and smile with friends. And like, I've been in goofier than I have in a long time. Like my buddy, like right here, you can see we have a plant that we're building in our apartment. Like
Yeah.
literally, like, and it's mostly Sean because I'm not nearly as good as he is at this type of stuff. But we're like experimenting, and
Hmm.
we're doing things that make us laugh, because laughter, I think, is such an important key to this life that we live.
Yeah.
And it goes
It
a long
really
way.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it can be easy to forget that right now. And like you're saying, I think that empathy piece is huge. But I think also knowing that, if we take care of ourselves, and the better that we feel, the more empathetic we're actually going to be able to be. And we're going to be able to, I know we say this a lot, but we have to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of anybody else. And
yeah.
that's so, so important.
And trying to do, I think, almost like a challenge to the students is almost trying to do one different thing a day to just like smile or try to make your friend smile. And I know
Yeah.
today's technically April Fool's Day, but it's, it's just like, don't be afraid to be funny. Don't be afraid to be a clown, to be who you are. And I think that goes such a long way. And when people see that and they see that energy and they see that you are being yourself still, it makes the fear subside a little bit. We already have so much fear going on right now.
Yeah.
There's already so much that we're all dealing with. Let's do some stuff to kind of help that fear slow down, help subside it, and
Mhm.
just be who we are still, and then when this is all over, we're going to be so grateful, and we're going to be so much more, I think, stronger as a society.
Mhm.
And when we're out there, and you're not going to take for granted going to just getting food on a Friday night, like,
Yeah.
and I think it's staying healthy, find these new techniques, because listen, like, some people out there might be finding, wow, like without all this going on, I feel a little more healthy. And some people might be feeling that way. That's not a bad thing either, you know?
And I think for, for other people who are, really struggling right now, I think to just remind them as well that it's okay, whatever you're feeling, and to really give yourself that forgiveness, and to not be judgmental towards your feelings, but to allow yourself to feel that, but to also know that, we have an opportunity right now to be able to slow down, and to maybe be able to, try something new to kind of combat like what you're feeling, and to really get into that, like you're saying, like maybe a better self-care routine. And it really is, like I said before, a chance to invest in ourselves. And I think, I keep trying to remind myself that when I am going 100 miles an hour, I always wish for that day off or for that moment to slow down. And right now I have it. So I'm trying to just really be present with that and be okay with that. And to say to myself, it's okay that I'm slowing down. It's okay that, this is happening. I can't control it. But to really just, give myself that forgiveness when I need it. And also, like you were saying, trying new things and just being flexible with my self-care too. Like whatever is working for me that day, that's awesome. And if it doesn't work for me the next day, that's okay too. So I think really just looking at this time as, just really a time where I can slow down. And that's something I've never had before. So I think, one day I'm going to wish I could slow down maybe at this pace again. I'm not sure, but I think, trying to just be present with it and say that it's really okay, whatever I'm feeling, and that it's okay to also, to slow down.
Teaching us a lot about ourselves, I think. And
Yeah.
that's always a powerful thing. And, you wish it didn't, you wish it wasn't happening the way it was happening, but at the same time, it is a really good opportunity to sit there, embrace the slowness,
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that we all need. And if we keep running, this is something that I'm hoping, knock on wood, hopefully this is all over relatively soon. But once it's over,
Yeah.
I was saying earlier, I really got to keep some of these positives that we're taking from this and bring it to life.
Yeah.
Because there's so much good. You have to try to make the best of every situation, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it seems impossible. Sometimes it is impossible, but we got to keep trying. We got to keep pushing. We got to keep being there for each other. And, I know a lot of these seniors that lost their senior year, but at the same time, what you didn't, let's try to figure out ways we can bring each other together and keep pushing forward. I mean, I don't know. These conversations always get me really excited. This felt like 5 minutes, but we've been talking, I think, for like 45 minutes now. We've been crushing it.
Yeah. I could talk about this stuff all day.
Literally, literally.
Yeah.
Well, this is a pleasure as always. And we're going to be doing some more things with Kathleen too. We're going to be going live in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to hopefully be building more and more students to come join us so they could ask questions, be more interactive. And this is a great introduction to, I think, who Kathleen is, who I am a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, we're gonna keep cranking this. We're gonna keep doing what we can do to help you guys. And feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to share. And I'll leave, Kathleen, I'll leave some of your information that you can share. I'll put that in like the bio to this.
Yeah.
Who wants to reach out and has any specific questions for you. This was absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for doing it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. And like I said before, it's, I hope that I kind of shed some light on some of the topics that, we talked about today. And for all of you guys out there who are listening, I think it's just so important to take home that, whatever you're feeling right now is okay, and to not, be judgmental towards your feelings, and to just try and do, little intentional acts that can, better your emotional, your mental, and your physical health right now are so important. And to remind yourselves that it's an opportunity to invest in yourself, and to really be okay with slowing down.
Amen. That's a great way to end it. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Yep.